Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. This is Paul Carruthers, and I'm the communications manager for MotoAmerica. And this is our weekly podcast, Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I'm joined, as always, by Sean Bice, who's out in Ohio. I'm in Southern California. Sean, you should see me this morning. I am the epitome of Southern California. I'm in my little beach house. I just finished eating what they call an acai bowl, which you probably don't even have those in Ohio, right?
Oh, it's a berry thing, right? Yeah, I only see it at like Jamba Juice or something.
Yeah, it's the fruit of a South American palm. And I think with the price I just paid for it, I probably paid for everybody's to get shipped here. So anyway, I was having my acai bowl and sipping my latte, and it's a beautiful day at the beach.
Wow.
And, yeah, everything is, just living the dream here.
That's perfect, man. Well, hey, Paul, I think I've used this reference before, but for people like us of a certain age that have remember the movie The Jerk, the scene in when Steve Martin sees that his name is in the phone book and he's all excited about it. He always goes, I'm in the phone book. I'm in the phone book. I always have that feeling when, we just got the first entry list for VIR. And when Danelle sends it to me, I get so excited about seeing who's on it and, finding out how many riders we have and everything. So it hasn't been put up on the website yet, but we've got a massive amount of people. We've got like 182 riders that are going to be at VIR, and there's like 43, I think. No, 37 in Superbike. So when Danilo Petrucci talking about back markers, that's a narrow track where it's going to be, it'll be interesting when we're there, but it's going to make it fun for sure.
No doubt. He's going to find out what a lapper is.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's funny because, he complained a little bit about it, but really when you think about it, and our guests can even comment on that when we bring them in, but in MotoGP, the quality of the field is such that you rarely see a lapper in that class, because it just doesn't happen. The pack is separated by such little margins from first to whatever the bottom is, 25th or whatever they have. So yeah, he's not used to that, but a few more races here and he'll definitely get used to it because, as you know, it tends to go both ways, but there's a lot of times when someone does kind of get screwed by a lap rider, but it's just part of the game.
Yeah, and it's tough for us because obviously we want a lot of entries, for growth of our sport and everything, and everybody that's in it, it's important to them. And in order to have a race, you have to have at least one other person, but it's nice to have a lot more. And they can use going through traffic as strategy too sometimes. So there are good and bad things about it, but I just think it's cool that the series is the way it is. And we had a great amount, over 200 entries at Road Atlanta because we had baggers and hooligans. So at VIR, it's not quite 200, but we do have 15 riders for that Royal Enfield Build Train Race program. So that'll be fun to see them again.
Yeah, it'll be a busy weekend, but it'll be fun. I always enjoy going to VIR. It's a bit different. It's one of those tracks that's kind of got some soul to it, with the old barns and things like that. It's got a good feel, and I think that the riders generally like the track. So
yeah, plus Virginia is for lovers, and we're both lovers, not fighters. So
well, there you go. Well, let's bring our guest in. I think everybody in the country is proud of this young man now because Joe Roberts won the Portimao Moto2 Grand Prix, and he became the first American to do so since John Kocinski back when it was 250cc Grand Prix in 1990, and the first Grand Prix win of any kind since Ben Spies won at Assen. So he's done something that we've been waiting for a long time. Joe went over there 5 or 6 years ago. And I always had the feeling this was going to happen. I honestly thought it was going to happen quicker than what it did, and I'm sure he felt the same. But he did it. It's here, and he's a Grand Prix winner. And Joe, how does it feel? Is it any different for you, or are you just the same guy?
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's I think it's like you said, it's been something I've been chasing for a while. I thought I could get it done in 2020. I thought we had a lot of chances there. Even last year I had a couple races where I felt we had the pace for it, but yeah, I mean, it's just such a amazing feeling. I mean, I think to describe it, it's just pure happiness, you know, just when you cross the line, it's just something that I think, you know, I hadn't won even a Grand Prix or not even Grand Prix. I haven't won a race in so long. I think because I went to Europe and got thrown into that mix of the top level riders of the world back in 2017. So I don't even think I haven't won a race in forever, you know. So I've really had forgotten what it felt like to cross the finish line first, and it's yeah, I just think it's just the best feeling ever. But you know, makes you want to get more, you know. So this sport's addicting, you know.
Yeah, and winning's addicting, and that, like you said, that was a very long drought. You probably got your legs probably got pumped up climbing to that top step because they weren't used to it.
Exactly.
So Joe, now that you have done it, I could imagine if I was in your position, I would feel like a huge load has been lifted off my shoulder, and I could actually just go race the motorcycle now instead of constantly having that in the back of your mind that you need to do this and you need to do that. You've actually accomplished it. Do you feel that? Is that how you feel? Do you feel like, okay, like take a deep breath, I've done that, now let's move forward and can keep doing it?
Yeah, totally. But you know, I think Jerez, when I showed up there, you know, I felt great. I felt like, yeah, walking into the weekend with tons of confidence. And we didn't have a bad weekend, to be fair. I think it was, yeah, for, you know, a good top 10 finish, but I definitely went, you know, okay, we're back into this crazy competitive field of Moto2, you know. So I definitely have that, feel like I have it off my shoulders, you know, in that way, to just get the first one out. And I think more, if I was in a position to win again, I don't think I would be as desperate, and I mean, I would, but it wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be so nervous, you know. I feel like I would be able to do a last lap battle and be smart in that thing and be calm, you know. I think that would be, just because you already have that, you know, first one out of your belt, you know. So yeah, I think that would be the next thing.
I think when people look at Moto2, I think it started with you. When you went over there, I think people saw how difficult it was. But I still think there was a little bit of disbelief in people's minds, like, how it can't be that hard. Well, now Cameron has shown how hard it is. Sean Dillon Kelly has shown how hard it is. And now there's this, I think, this overwhelming belief of like, yeah, this is freaking hard. I watch those races religiously, and I have timing and scoring on my phone. I have the race on my TV. And honestly, when I'm done watching the race, I feel like I've been through a prize fight, because it just seems like somebody's getting punched in the gut every single week. Like one week it can go well, and the next week you're in 20th and getting the shit kicked out of you. And it just seems like I don't know how you can even deal with it sometimes.
I mean, it's an emotional roller coaster. I mean, like you said, I've been in this class for a while, and I've had some real ups where I felt like the best rider on the track, and I've had some weekends where I felt like I was nothing, you know. And it's hard mentally to go through that, you know, because I mean, the gaps are so close. That's the other thing that, you know, I feel like the computer warriors don't seem to know, is that, you know, you have these, you know, it's like, okay, 20th place in Jerez last weekend. Well, that was about 8/10 or 9/10 from first. And I mean, that's nothing, you know. That's really like, those are just such fine margins that maybe you just didn't put a lap together, or you got a lap canceled, or maybe not like first to 20th, but like first to 15th, you know, can be like that, where you really just didn't get that lap done. And that's why you're in 15th, but it looks like the worst thing in the world, you know, and you feel like the worst thing in the world when you come off the track too, because you're like, wow, I'm not, these guys, I have so many guys more in front of me, you know, right now. But I don't know. It's just something like mentally you have to know that you can't, like you are here, you are racing against the best riders in the world. I've set lap records, you know, like those are things that you need to remember. I've qualified on pole, I've gotten on a podium, like won a race. These are all things you have to like bank in your head that, you know, when you have a tough weekend, you know, just know it's a tough weekend and there's another track, it's a long series, and you can come back, you know. I mean, you see it all the time. So,
you know, Joe, I think back to, I don't know what year it is. You can tell us better than I can remember it, but it was when, you know, you were racing in Red Bull Rookies and you came over and I think you went to Barber and you won both races that weekend, your first time out in MotoAmerica or in AMA. And, you know, you were just like, wow, you know, we heard about you. And here you did it and you started winning and you started getting on a roll, and it continued for a few years. And this idea about once you win one, it gives you the confidence to win another. Well, you mentioned about, you know, you had the win and you had another weekend, and it you know, it was a good weekend and everything. But when you were standing on that podium and you had that overwhelmed look, and I, you know, kind of looking up in the whole Star Spangled Banner and all that kind of stuff, did you think to yourself, I can't believe I did it, or that was easy, I can do this? I mean, what was your mentality then? Or were you just not thinking about any of that and just lost in the moment?
I mean, yeah, I mean, that race was definitely a very special race, just considering like the way that how it all unfolded with the top riders and the first part kind of crashing out, and then it coming down to a 7-lap race. I think for me, it was definitely a confidence boost to win that race, but like also to pull away from all the, you know, I mean, it pulled away from Vietti, who's leading the championship right now. So there was some good guys in that race, but I don't know. I think it was just something like just being able to cross the finish line. I mean, it was definitely a special race, but it just felt like needed for me. It really felt like I needed that, you know, just after a lot of, you know, just, you know, making the decisions I've made and, you know, things not going to plan like I thought they would. I think for me to cross the finish line and just have, you know, a result like that, it just felt like such a relief. I don't know. It poured out of me, just the emotion for it. Cause I mean, yeah, I put so much into this, and everyone around me puts so much into this, all the people that support me. And it's been a lot of years chasing this dream, and yeah, I don't know. It just, it definitely was probably one of the best moments of my life to have that happen. Even though, yeah, considering the race it was, you know, it just felt, yeah, like I said, just felt needed.
You know, and you mentioned this thing about the people that you have around you. I mean, family and friends and all kinds of people. And I know all the riders are like that, but I internalize this stuff myself. And sometimes when I'm going to do something, I feel like I'm trying to do it more for other people that maybe care about me, or I want to show them, you know, that I value what they're providing for me. Do you feel that sometimes? Do you feel pressure that, oh man, I can't let my entourage, I don't mean to say entourage, but you know what I mean, my family, everybody, yeah. It's almost like it's easier to let yourself down than it is to everybody else. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And it is definitely like the whole idea of pressure is a funny one, because I think the people around you don't tell you they're putting pressure on you. You know, it's not, everyone's like, you're doing great, you know, it will come, stay calm. That's generally the kind of the things that people say to me, or even in my team too. My team are, you know, last year, if I crashed out of races we could have finished well in, or, you know, a weekend didn't go to plan, or whatever happened, you know, at the end of the year with my breaking my collarbone, they really stood by me and were like, we believe in you, we know you can do this. So it's like one of those things that, like, then when everyone around you is giving you so much support, the pressure just lies from like within, you know, you put all that pressure on yourself to perform. And I think there's definitely an element like you want to do well for the people that have believed in you. But I mean, I think there is definitely that element for sure. But I think I just have the things that I want to do in this, you know. I've been chasing this thing for my own reasons, and yeah, there's goals I want to hit, you know, there's things I want to do. And when I feel like a race that I could have done something at, and, you know, I made a mistake and crashed out, or the weekend, you know, didn't go to plan, I take it personally, you know. So I think the pressure I put is really on myself. But, you know, obviously everyone wants to win. So there's, you know, that there's pressure. I'm in a great team, and a team that's won the championship. So obviously we know we need to win races.
Okay, one more going back to Portimao. When that whole mess happened in front of you in the Grand Prix, it gets red flagged, you get regridded, those guys aren't there. Are you sitting, when you're sitting on that grid right there, are you like, I mean, the way you handled that race, it's like you shot out of a cannon and you were like, I'm not going to be denied. This is the race I'm going to win. Was that clear to you on the grid?
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like I had to, you know, with the circumstances. I mean, I think Jake posed the biggest threat. I mean, I don't know, because, you know, like Jorge Navarro and Vietti as well, they had really, I kind of looked at when I came in with the red flag, I was kind of looking at everybody's last lap to see who was fast. And the guys behind me, like Vietti and Navarro, were a bit quicker than me, even in the first part of the race. And Jake too, as well. So I don't know. I think when the conditions are like that, where people are a bit on edge because it's just rain and there's been a bunch of crashes, I see that as such an opportunity to capitalize on, you know, people's discomfort with the conditions. So I mean, I felt I really had nothing to lose. I mean, the first part of the year, we didn't have any like spectacular results, or I wasn't I mean, we're in the top 10 in the championship, but nothing, you know, I didn't feel I needed to, you know, hold back at all. I just felt I needed to go. And I felt like, I know this track, it's a track that I really love a lot. And I don't know, I gave a good feel around the track on the warm-up laps with my foot to see if it was kind of wet, and or if my boot was catching, if it was grippy, and track felt fine to me. So I just decided to go for it. I mean, I don't know. I was surprised with the gap though, because I mean, these guys in Moto2 don't hold back, you know. I think everyone was pushing, but I just found a rhythm. I talked to Wayne about it, Wayne Rainey, and he told me the first race he ever won, it felt like the easiest race in the world. And honestly, that one felt not easy, but it felt like it just flowed out of me really, really comfortably, you know. I just really found my rhythm on the track. So yeah.
Okay, so with all that behind us, 6 races in the bank, you're 5th in the championship. We're obviously not going to start saying that Joe's going to be world champion this year, but I mean, you're 5th in the championship, and the way things have been going and the way things are in that class, I mean, you're not out of that. And I don't want to put any pressure on you to think that you're going to tell me that you think you can be world champion, because I know that's probably not how you feel right now. But I mean, you are in the chase.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're there. I mean, it's yeah, like you said, 5th in the championship. I'm almost equal on points that I scored last year, which is kind of crazy. But I think the key to this class is just finish, you know. I mean, like you just pointed out at the beginning of this podcast, like the inconsistency of results. I mean, some weekends you're there and some weekends you're not. And I think the biggest key to this class is just being there constantly, you know, and when you can win, and if it's not your day, maybe take a 5th or you take a top 10. I mean, it's all valuable points, you know. So that's kind of been I've tried to stay a little bit more calm, you know, in this first part of the championship, and finish where I felt we could finish in these weekends. And I mean, last weekend was 8th, you know, that was all I had. But Le Mans coming up, and I love that track, and that could be something else, you know, who knows? So I do love Le Mans a lot, and also Mugello too coming up. That's a good circuit for me. So yeah, that's the kind of idea behind this year, is just take the best result you can from that weekend, and whether that's a win or a top 10 or a top 5, you gotta be confident with that.
Well, so let's go back and talk about that track a minute. I don't understand. I have seen or heard people say that those riders that went down and high-sided happened in the space of about 5 feet of track. And everybody said it was just wet. And I'm thinking, you were there, Joe. What, the whole track was wet? The court, I don't get it. And how did it, after that happen? How did everything seem to be okay so shortly after that? Was it a cloudburst in one turn? Was it really just wet in that one section? And what did you experience through there?
Yeah, I mean, that first part of the race was like really weird conditions all weekend. That part of the world, it just kind of rains, or it does, it will rain in one concentrated part. So it'd be like one corner has gotten rained on, but the rest of the track's fine, and I had it kind of in the back of my mind that something like that was maybe going to happen. I mean, it's so like mentally difficult when you're riding a track on dry tires and it starts raining. Like, can be like you almost just have to like judge how much water is coming down and go, okay, is this enough to make the track wet? Because I mean, there's just a huge commitment, especially at Portimao, where you have all those downhills and the big, like the G outs of the bike. I mean, if you hit that with a wet part, I mean, that's not going to be fun. But yeah, so the first part of the race, I was just a little like concerned about the water coming down. And I mean, the front guys, unfortunately, were the ones that had to see it all first, and experience everything first. And they were pushing hard. I mean, the pace was there. And so when I saw them coming into turn 2 and everyone was high side, and I kind of had a feeling that it had just rained, even though it, wasn't actually raining. I think it just basically had come through maybe 20 seconds. A little cloud of rain just came through 20 seconds before we got there. Because you could smell it too. Like, you can smell the moisture coming off of the asphalt. It just really smelled like, oh man, I think it just had rained through here. So I backed out. I backed out enough to stay on. I still had a moment, but I don't really know how I stayed on, considering how many people went down there. But yeah, I was just lucky to predict it, I guess. Or yeah.
That's amazing that you can smell it in the track. And by the way, for people listening to this podcast, that's actually called petrichor. It's a smell, that smell you get when it's rained or it recently rained, but I've never heard it associated necessarily with a track, but I know what you're talking about, Joe, and I'm sure other people do too. It's just some kind of difference in the air, but it's amazing that you're flying around that track and could notice that. So here's my next question on that. So you guys famously or infamously, however you want to put it, don't have traction control on your bikes. And I assume it's a cost-cutting measure. And those bikes were classic. Those bikes went down on classic high sides, almost 2 strokes to the moon and that kind of thing. Do you think traction control would have helped in that case? And do you wish you had traction control on your bike?
I don't think it would have helped in that case. I think you can tell because, I mean, if you look at the MotoGP Q2 from the Saturday, I mean, those guys had traction control and they were high siding like crazy, I think it can only do so much. And when you commit to a corner like that with that turn 2 at Portimao is third gear. You come in from full throttle, you roll out, not even completely, you roll out like, a quarter of the throttle, and you go back to full again. And if it's just wet there, maybe the traction control would have contained it a little bit, but I don't think it would have saved it. As far as like if I would like traction control, I mean, I haven't used it for so long that it's hard for me to say. This is kind of all I've known for the last 5 years, 6 years. I mean, I never even raced superbikes, so I don't really know I mean, I've obviously used it before on street bikes or like, 1000s at track days and stuff, but not to like the level of, a top system that, people are using for racing. Yeah. Although actually I did use it in Suzuka 8-hour before. I don't know. I think Moto2 is a great teacher. It just teaches you such control and feel that it probably needs to be like this. It grooms the best riders, I think. So, but it would be interesting to try one of those GP bikes to see what it would feel like. I know from talking to, the riders that have moved up this year that it's a whole other world dealing with electronics. I mean, it's a whole other thing to think about when you're riding. I mean, it's such a small part for the Moto2 bikes. You have the biggest thing we can control is the engine brake. We have a bunch of different maps that can kind of help slow down the bike in different ways, in different parts of the corner, different gears and stuff like that. And a little bit with the throttle too, just like the torque, they call it like torque management, I think. So it just kind of will delay the throttle, so you give a kind of a smoother effect. But yeah, it's very, very basic stuff.
I think you may have partially just answered a question I'm going to ask you now, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And I can almost maybe predict what you're going to say, but for my purposes, I got to ask this question because when I watch Moto2 and I watch MotoGP, it seems like it's so much harder to race Moto2 than it is MotoGP. That's a simplified layperson's look at it. And and I'm not talking about the electronics. It just seems like in so many ways, I mean, Moto2 is just so bloodthirsty to me that the MotoGP, I understand it's not easy. I understand it's the pinnacle of the sport, but does that seem weird for me to think that MotoGP is a cakewalk compared to Moto2, or do you see where I'm coming from?
I would have to ride in that class to tell you the difference, to be honest. But I mean, I think that just like what I've observed from the riders that have gone there and just, knowing what I know about the bikes or the tires, I just think that it's just such a different type of motorcycle. I mean, Moto2 is that whole class, you're riding different tires. You don't have as many options for tires. Everything's really stripped down and really basic, and pretty much everyone except for, the speed up guys or, I think, yeah, MV Agusta, everyone's on a Calyx, so everyone's riding the same bike and the engines are all the same and everything. So it's just so different. And Moto2 has always been, one of those classes that's it's just about the rider, and I mean, there's definitely some teams figure out some things, I think, but I mean, for the most part, it's very, very stripped down. And yeah, I don't know. I think MotoGP just has different elements to it that make it a lot different, but I mean, I think it's crazy right now thinking about MotoGP and how competitive it is. I mean, looking at it compared to even like 5 years ago, it looks insane to be in that class. I mean, the lap times are separated. The gaps are really similar to Moto2 now. The top guys are separated by a second, like the top 20, it's really similar. So motorcycle racing is just at a crazy high level right now,
Okay, so Joe, I don't know how many of our listeners know, but you and Cameron Beaubier are now neighbors. I don't know how close of neighbors. I think you're in the same complex maybe. So I don't know that you're necessarily right next door, but I know you're in the same little hood there. Now, Cameron, have you had to have a talk with him at all? Like, Cameron, just chill. This class sucks. You get punched in the stomach every other race. Just do what you can and keep your spirits up, or do you leave him alone?
We talk a little bit about things for sure. I try to pass on things I've learned from the last few years of being here. I think he's learning a lot on his own just with what he's going through, but I mean, Cameron, I think, is doing great. He's had some pretty great weekends and amazing lap times. I mean, the lap time he did in Coda was impressive, in those windy conditions, and I was certainly impressed. But no, I don't know. Me and Cam have a good relationship. I'm always messing with him and trying to yeah, I don't know. We go cycling together too, and no, it's a good relationship for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's fun to mess with, and I just think from a patient standpoint, I think you must have learned how to deal with it as far as the patience goes, and I don't think he's quite there yet, because I think he just expects more out of himself without taking into consideration just how difficult it is. So that's why I brought that up, because I think if anything by now, with all the years you've been there, if you haven't learned anything, you've definitely learned patience.
You would think so. I think I definitely don't have I still feel I need to work on that, but no, I mean, yeah, you got to be patient, but I mean, I feel him. I mean, I'm there too. Sometimes I'm like, come on, let's get up there and start battling for wins. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know how it feels.
Yeah. And we never stop learning. I mean, I didn't know I was going to learn a new word today, petrichor.
Petrichor, yeah.
Petrichor. So I'm going to have to start working that into my story somehow. I just got to figure out how.
Hey, Joe, I want to go back and talk to you about the bike a little bit. So you mentioned you're on a Calyx, and there are other frames there, but you guys all obviously use the same engine, a Triumph 765 triple, and the gearbox is part of that as well. And I want to ask you some questions. Corey Ventura showed up at New Jersey Motorsports last year, and he hadn't raced in Twins Cup, and he got on that Aprilia RS 660, and he liked the bike a lot, but found out pretty quickly that you have to be very specific and very intentional about making your gear shift changes. And we've talked to Kyle Wyman about this with the King of the Baggers series. They've just changed their gearbox on that bike, and prior to that it was a little bit sort of industrial, and he was actually getting a bloody foot from shifting it. So I'm bringing this all to the fact that we've heard some anecdotes or some stories that the gearbox is a little bit tricky on that bike. Do you ever have any issues with the shifting?
I did in the past, when the first year of the Triumph back in 2019, just going from second to first gear. I mean, sometimes you'd get it from third to second, but you get like a lot of false neutrals, especially at tracks like Coda, where you use the first gear a lot. And that's, yeah, I mean, they've definitely improved it now. I haven't really had any, like any false neutrals really this year. So definitely gotten a lot better. I mean, the gearboxes feel all right to me. Nothing like too crazy with them. But it's all I know, man.
Well, yeah, that's probably part of it. And the fact that, like I said, it's sometimes something, not every gearbox doesn't feel the same one bike to another. And, if you're on the same engine for a little while, you're sort of getting used to it, and it's something you have to adapt to. And obviously it sounds like you have pretty well. So,
well, the best gearbox I ever rode on was in the Suzuka 8-hour when I rode for Yukiya Kageyama's team on the Suzuki. They had like a gearbox in there, because that was a year of the Honda where we're still using the clutch to downshift. We didn't have auto blip, so it was like old school. You'd use the clutch to back it in and all of that. And the first gear was like, on that Honda, was not great at all. I mean, you'd have to blip the thing to get it in. You'd have to wait to put the first gear to like pretty much you got to the apex. So when I went to Suzuka, they kind of drew a track map with all the gears, and I was like seeing all these first gear corners. I was like, man, I mean, is the first gear going to be all right in these corners? And they like looked at me like I was crazy or something. They're like, what do you mean? Just go use it. And it felt like just any other gear, there was no like weird, like super harsh engagement. It just like floated into it. So that was definitely the best gearbox I've ever ridden.
So we're not expecting you to make any announcements here or anything. It's too early in the year for that, and silly season. But I do want to ask you, every year, it seems like your career, anybody else's career in World Championships hangs a little bit in the balance, not really sure what's going on. Do you yet know, you don't have to tell us, but and probably wouldn't anyway, but do you know yet what the plan is for next year? And you still see, is there, obviously the ultimate pathway is up to MotoGP. And I'm going to throw one other thing in this announcement about Suzuki not being involved anymore, but yet there's still going to be teams out there. It's not going to change maybe the amount of rides that are available. So, if you can kind of talk about all that, and really, if you tell us that's a big deal to not have Suzuki in MotoGP anymore. So can you talk about all that and what you kind of are seeing for yourself coming up, if you can share it all?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's real early in the season, and we're just getting the results in, So I think a lot of things have to fall into play more on the top end with where the top riders in MotoGP are going and all that. But if I'm honest, I'm not really thinking about it too much. I think in years past, I fell under the thinking about what I could do to get up there and what was good enough and all that stuff. So and that was just not mentally good for me, So, I mean, this year it's just really, I just want to have the best season I can ever, I just want to have the best ever season I've had in Moto2. So I'm working to do that. And wherever that puts me in the future is where it will be. But that's really where my headspace is at. But yeah, I mean, it's as far as Suzuki, I mean, that's it. I was pretty shocked to read it, but and it's sad too, because honestly, I know a lot of people on that team just from my experience in the Suzuka 8-hour. I got to work with some of the technicians from that team, and I really love those guys a lot. So it's definitely sad too. That bike to me was such a cool bike. One of my favorites on the MotoGP grid, and yeah, I mean, I guess it's not confirmed, but it is. Right. I don't know where it's at and all those things, but it definitely throws a real interesting wrench into the whole, season next year of where everyone will be. And yeah, definitely hard to predict. And I don't think it's going to be a normal kind of season where everything's announced in the summer. I feel like things are going to be maybe a little delayed. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but it just seems like so many things are thrown up in the air right now.
I mean, I just think the whole thing's so weird, because I had to stop and think. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, you had Quartararo last year, but I said, wait, the year before they won the championship. What is going on? How is that even possible? But I know things change pretty quickly from one year to another, as you allude to with the fact that your situation, you never know. Hey, we're getting ready to wrap up here, but this isn't really a question, Joe. It's merely something I want to tell you, and I want to share it with the fans on this podcast. So when we were in Coda, and we had gone out to this barbecue place, and we got done and we came outside, and I'll tell you how it went for me. And all of a sudden I saw Keaton Hendrickson, who I didn't expect to see there. I knew he had worked in the World Championship, but wasn't sure what was up. And he was a teammate of mine a few years ago when I was working with Yamaha. So I immediately saw him, and I started going over. And then I saw you, and you're like, "Hey, Sean," and you put your arms out, and I said, "It's obvious he's going to hug me." And I'm like, Joe, that made my entire weekend.
Oh,
I'm like,
Jesus.
No, Robert wanted to hug me. So I'm like, I was riding on cloud nine from then on. So that was so great. Thank you for not big timing me.
What? No, man. We had some good times at Yamaha when I was riding the R6 that year.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. It was good to see you guys.
Yeah, it was
barbecue too.
He was excited all the way back to the hotel, Joe. I didn't even feel comfortable sitting in the back seat with him.
He's like, Joe hugged me.
All right, Joe, we're gonna cut you loose here. Oh, you tested today. Just tell us real quick. Did it go?
Oh,
okay?
Yeah. Yes.
We got rained out, so
shit.
Not much to write home about, but I mean, it was pretty early days. We just trying some different stuff for the hotter conditions and things, even though it was kind of cold today. So,
at least you didn't have to go far, right?
Yeah, I live kind of far from the track. I'm like an hour away, so yeah. But It's fine. We got one more day tomorrow, and it's looking like it's gonna be sunny all day, so we should get some good laps in and be ready for Le Mans for sure.
So it was like driving to Willow Springs from your house.
It honestly was. It felt like my new home track.
All right, Joe. Well, thanks for joining us. And like I often tell Cameron when I feel like he's getting down, it's like there's a lot of races to go. And if you excel in the last 5, nobody seems to remember the other 16 or whatever. So it's just take it one at a time and continue to do well, and good luck. And we'll catch up with you again. But yeah, thanks for joining us all the way from Spain.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.